Well, we're very honored this morning to have Senator Blumenthal here. He's obviously no stranger to us in Bridgeport. He has a lot of fans in Bridgeport, and it's certainly not a surprise that he would be one of the first federal officials on the scene here to try to help our citizens. Let me run through some of the numbers for you, Senator, and for the media. The newest numbers, we evacuated approximately 13,000 residents from 4,700 households. It's the largest evacuation and sheltering we've ever been able to successfully pull off. Thank you, Red Cross. I see Diana's here. Approximately 135 fire, police, and city officials and volunteers, some of which were the city councilmen like Tom McCarthy, our council president, made up evacuation strike forces that went out into the neighborhood and rousted people up and brought them to safety, or encouraged them to double up inland with family and friends, and large numbers of them heeded our call. Approximately 20 GBT buses and vehicles were used to assisted in the evacuation as we moved through the neighborhood and gathered up people, put them on the buses, and brought them to shelters. As I said, the mass care sheltering that we coordinated here was the biggest and the most successful we've ever undertaken. Specifically at Bassick High School, there were 460 evacuees, including 11 dogs. And that's important to us because 11 people would have stayed in their home if we hadn't had our animal control personnel help us. There's 11 more people we brought to safety who would have used the excuse of their pets needed them. So we kept the pets together. At Harding, a little bit more of a menagerie, 240 persons, 7 dogs, 2 cats, and a turtle were safe and sound in the shelter. The American Red Cross is here. We want to thank them again. They served 1,300 meals in the shelter. Our vulnerable populations, as managed here from the EOC, the City of Bridgeport, EOC assisted in the delivery of 3,108 meals, 1,500 snacks, and 1,172 bottles of water to locations that large numbers of people were without power. You can see some of the damage up on the screen behind us. Our local libraries are available for residents needing to charge their cell phones and their laptops and their healthcare equipment, including their wheelchairs. Preliminary damage assessments. Everybody wants to talk about that, and we don't have any firm numbers. Scott is going to give you what we do have, but let me say that as of today, our damage assessment teams have visited 34 buildings impacted by the storms and notifying the EOC of their damages. This consisted of 34 streets. This consisted of 691 buildings and 1,400 dwelling units that were impacted by the storm damage. 120 streets were impacted with debris ranging from flooding to downed trees and wires. At one point, the storm had a little more than 35,000 United Illuminating customers out of power. Much of that was quickly restored. We want to thank United Illuminating for their great response here. Many of us were over in senior housing projects with the police cadets. Thank you, Chief Gaudet. The chief ordered the police cadets to be delivering ready meals and cooked food to many of the senior citizens. We were at Fireside, where you visited many times, and Lou, who's our block watch captain at Fireside, sort of took control, but we were over there 2 or 3 times bringing hot meals. But we want to thank United Illuminating because they did prioritize our senior congregate housing as highest in terms of priority, and we got those vulnerable communities back with electricity. The pre-assessment damages, I'm going to let Scott Appleby fill those in, but first I think we should hear from our 2 chiefs briefly, Chief Gaudet and Chief Runer. Chief, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank Senator Blumenthal for coming here today out of his busy schedule and taking a look at the assessment here in the city of Bridgeport. The fire department was very fortunate during this storm in that we did not have a major fire, which we were really concerned about. However, one of our biggest challenges that we never did before was the evacuation with the police department, the Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority, as well as the American Medical Response, who assisted us in that challenge, which really worked very well. One of the things that we did face during the storm was quite a bit of down wires, that we responded to. I think we hit over 160 calls during the storm, and we were able to respond to each and every one of them, which we were really concerned about because of the high winds. So we were very fortunate in that part. And the fact that I've said before that I think this is the first hurricane that we all gathered in the new Emergency Operations Center here, and again, it worked out very well. We were able to coordinate with the dispatchers in the EOC, as well as all the different disciplines that were here that we could have face-to-face conversations with and resolve a lot of the problems that were coming our way. So I think it really worked very well, and again, I think Senator Blumenthal was instrumental in helping us get this facility, so I want to thank him again for that. And we are still answering some calls. We're still getting calls on some flooded basements and things of that nature, but the worst of it is over for now. So I'll turn it over to Chief Gaudette.
Thank you, sir. Senator, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. We appreciate all the support that you've given us over the years, and we look forward to more in the future.
Especially with FEMA.
I have some of my command staff here, Deputy Chief Razbursky, Deputy Chief Armino. I'd like to single out their efforts. They were here through the entire hurricane, and for 2 or 3 days in a row, we bunked in here, and you did an awesome job coordinating with all the other agencies, especially the Public Works. Mr. Carroll, thank you very much. UI, Red Cross, and the unprecedented effort and cooperation that we received in our first ever evacuation attempt. Thank you, Chief Rooney, and members of the Bridgeport firefighters, our city council members who are out there pounding the streets with us, knocking on doors, trying to convince people that they should move for their best interest, and we believe that a lot of those people took our advice, and consequently we probably saved a few lives along the way. I'd like to believe that anyway. Members of the Bridgeport Police Department took 16-hour shifts. All of our police officers have families at home, and they were able to take care of their families and stay here and take care of our citizens as well. So we appreciate them doing that and staying with it. Now we're in the recovery phase. We've added extra patrols in the areas where there are power outages, and the streets have been quiet, and the community has come together and working together to take care of each other, I think. And it's really a great spirit out there, and looking forward to getting back to normal and getting back on our regular shifts. And we appreciate everybody's assistance as we move forward. Thank you.
I think every time we experience nature's wrath, it's a humbling experience for all of us. And the one story, Senator, I really think that you could take away from this is when you have a citizenry that's mobilized and you have a professional level that we have at our EOC, our fire and police, we can do anything. We can withstand anything. And the way that our volunteers stepped up, led by Kenny and the other volunteers, the ham radio operators, the volunteers on the strike force teams to convince their neighbors to get out. If you really want a message coming out of Bridgeport, is people working together succeeded. Scott, quick update on the numbers.
Senator, thank you for coming again, and under these times, I think we've had enough of these, right, don't you think? Right now, the City of Bridgeport's Emergency Operations Center is in that recovery phase. We have our damage assessment teams out there. We've had them out there since Monday night into Tuesday, into Wednesday. FEMA has arrived today, our FEMA assessment teams. Today, we are actually moving forward to the individual assessments. We're going to those homes that we do know of that have been hardest hit. We will assess their damages. Right now, we're looking at dollar figures. Everybody wants to know dollar figures. From a city standpoint, we are estimating, and again, a pre-assessment numbers, over $5 million worth of damage caused by the destruction we see down at Seaside Park. That's labor costs for overtime for emergency protective measures, debris removal, and also within that is any equipment or buildings that were also damaged or impacted by our storm. We are explaining to the residents to please give us a call. We will work with you to ascertain any of that damage and make sure FEMA does know what's happening. We've been experiencing this, a tornado, a earthquake, and major storms. I think like the chief and the mayor and our city council has understand it's a team effort. With your assistance, with our federal and state partners, this is what can work, and it does work when we all come together. So I appreciate your time coming down here. If there's any other questions, Mayor.
Just so everybody's clear, we gave you a number of 10 million preliminary damage yesterday. That includes 5 million from not-for-profits and uninsured, and 5 million from city. That's how we came up with the 10. So Scott's 5 million is the city part, and we estimate another 5 million as preliminary numbers. Senator.
Thank you. Well, you know, this report is really very impressive. On a sunny day, a beautiful end of summer day as we have today, it's hard to recall the fury and ferocity of this hurricane and storm. And I've been following these pictures that you've seen here, concrete slabs literally lifted and moved from one place to another. The fury of this storm is really without precedent in my experience. And I think bottom line for Bridgeport, leadership performed and produced. And it was leadership that was matched by the community's involvement. The volunteers, the Red Cross, community organizations all came through with the police and the fire and the emergency responders. Just a great story of people coming together in a common cause. And I want to particularly thank Mayor Finch for his leadership at a time of adversity. You know, there's an old saying, we are tested in adversity. Easy to lead in good times. We are tested in adversity. And Bill Finch really led Bridgeport. I've been all around the state. Bridgeport's performance was unexcelled in the way it protected its people and produced leadership for its citizens. Going forward, I can pledge to you, I will fight as long and hard as necessary for funds from FEMA to compensate Bridgeport and every city and town in the state of Connecticut for the losses we sustain. Towns and cities don't budget for hurricanes. They don't have a category for natural disasters. And
You
whether
might want to
it's,
think of putting one in there.
well, be careful what you wish for. So all the more necessary in these tough times for the federal government to recognize its responsibility. And I will brook no excuse. I will tolerate no explanation from any opponent of this money, FEMA money, coming to Bridgeport. You know, you've heard that FEMA is hard-pressed for funds. That's true. We've had tornadoes and hurricanes throughout the United States this year. It's been a bad weather year. But I can tell you that other states have tens of applications pending, and there is no reason for Connecticut to go to the bottom of the list. Bridgeport and Connecticut should be at the top of the list, not the bottom. And I will remind everyone from the president on down about that responsibility. I've already talked to a number of my colleagues in the leadership of the Senate, and they are very sympathetic to what's happening here. Let me say also, in terms of power, we need to continue to press the utilities here in Bridgeport and around the state. I understand they have been responsive here. I'm glad that power has been restored for many households here. Electric power is not a luxury, it's a necessity. People can't live without it. And we ought to be mindful about the public responsibility of these utilities to provide adequate staffing in crews and maintenance and other kinds of workers to make sure that no one goes without electricity. And I will continue to press them. Our immediate goal and urgent objective is to restore power for all the citizens of Bridgeport and Connecticut. And then there will be time, and there should be a time, to review whether there was adequate preparation on the part of those utilities. I have suggested there should be an investigation by one of the federal agencies, whether it's the Department of Energy or the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, as to whether there have been adequate staffing levels in the past on the part of the utilities, and I've seen some numbers that are very concerning about reductions in staff over the years, which has been true in other areas of utility work as well. So just to summarize, I am deeply impressed by the job you've done, and I speak to everyone in this room and the many firemen and police and emergency responders who are not here today. I know that the two chiefs who are here and others in the leadership and our mayor recognize that the guys on the streets who went through this storm, and you see it in these pictures behind us here, the guys who were out there, boots on the ground, who endured the fury of this storm, deserve our thanks. People who helped and protected the citizens of Bridgeport and the state of Connecticut through this very, very difficult period, and will be there for them again. You know, they're not looking for thanks, but we owe it to them. And I'm saying to the mayor, thank you for your leadership, and thanks to the citizens of Bridgeport for showing us what real courage is in the face of adversity. And you came through for Connecticut, and I'm proud of you, and I'm going to be telling this story when we go back to Washington next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. And you know, one of the things I want to tell you is thank you for the compliments, but without federal largesse that everybody wants to criticize from the Tea Party on down, this is what helped us. The federal government stepping in and getting us this facility helped us coordinate. We could provide all the leadership in the world, but if we don't have the tools, we can't do the job. The federal government came through with the tools. This is a state-of-the-art facility. None of these other little tiny towns around here have anything like this. They should be here. I would suggest that one of the reasons why they are slower in their response is they weren't as prepared as us because of what we've gotten from the federal government to prepare ourselves with, and they weren't able to handle the storm as well because they're operating out of a closet. You know, we should, I think, force the smaller towns to be more regional in their approach because we're way ahead of the game, thanks to the federal government. So every time people want to kick the federal government, this is a great thing we have here. This works. We have every not-for-profit, every for-profit, every uniform force, every volunteer force, every ham operator. We're all here because the federal government gave us the technology, and we appreciate it very much. And we hope you tell that story because we can save lives. Our evacuations, I do believe, kept people out of harm's way, out of serious harm's way, and we couldn't have done it without the federal government giving us this kind of help. So I want to thank you very much. This is money well spent.